Whelan Presley and Van Ho Funeral Homes have been serving Quad City families and veterans for over 100 years. Whelan Presley is located in Rock Island, Milan, Reynolds, and Van Ho in East Moline, proudly supporting WQPT. Alternatives is a proud supporter of WQPT and has been serving our community for 40 years. Alternatives provides professional guidance to maintain independence and quality of life for older adults and adults with disabilities.
It is a superhighway that passes through our region. I'm not talking about Interstate 80 or 74, an even greater route which links and divides the cities. The Mississippi River is a workhorse. About 60% of America's grain exports travel the river to New Orleans, but the Mississippi River is also a playground. Just look at the many beaches and marinas. And the Mississippi River is a vital part of the Midwest ecosystem, the mother of all tributaries in the upper Midwest, and a source of drinking water and irrigation as well. Now, Western Illinois University is the home of the regional office for the Upper Mississippi River ports and is in a partnership with a group called Corn Belt Ports to promote development of the river while protecting natural resources. We sat down with Western Illinois University professor Richard Villadero, who is also the Institute of Environmental Studies Director at Western Illinois, and Colonel Robert Sinkler, who's with Corn Belt Ports. So Bob, tell me, what is the purpose of the Corn Belt ports? Because people don't really think of this area as ports, they just think of a river running through it.
Yeah, well, the region ships or handles about 100 million tons of freight. You can't ignore that at the national level or at the global level for that matter. So the purpose is really we really want to increase freight tonnage because it's good and enables us to meet some of our decarbonization goals. We also want to raise the profile, let the world know that, hey, our ports exist. There's a economic activity going on here that's very important, both to the nation and really to the global supply chain. And we want to raise the, elevate the visibility there. And then we want to use that visibility to increase visibility, attract more investment in the region, just to let everybody know we're on the map and we exist.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, it's no surprise the Mississippi River is a superhighway. It is the interstate of water, right, and the most critical for Midwest farmers. This designation doesn't change that. It just gives recognition to that?
It gave some recognition to it. There were no ports between federally recognized ports. Are you any ports on the U.S. ports list between St. Louis and St. Paul or between St. Louis and Chicago? So there was a big port, we call it a port shadow zone that existed. Mm-hmm. So we just wanted to correct that and fix that at the national level.
So the Quad Cities is now a port?
We are a port, that's correct. Yeah.
Well, Roger, explain to me, because we're talking about the economics of it. I mean, you're an environmentalist. You are so connected to the Mississippi River, sure, as a protector of the river, and we're talking about commerce. You're more interested in preserving the environment.
Yeah, absolutely. But in addition to preserving the environment, one of the things you need to understand about the Mississippi, or the Upper Mississippi River, is that this is the only waterway in the United States that's recognized for its importance with respect to commerce, but also as an important ecosystem. So if we want to continue to develop, whether it's a new port or, well, it could be a new anything, you kind of have to have the environmental part integrated into your plans for the future, for development. So again, this is just sort of a matter of fact. It's the way that, at least in my career, that I've known, the way the river's managed. So it's not actually inconsistent with the way people in the Quad Cities in general work, because you have to take both the commerce or commercial and the environmental factors into account.
But that wasn't always the way. I mean, you take a look at what the Quad Cities looked like 50 years ago. There were factories, sure, and everyone's back was to the river. They weren't, sure, looking at the river.
Absolutely.
It has totally changed in 50 years, where this synergy between commerce and environment,
absolutely,
is meshed now.
Absolutely. I mean, all you do is just, if you take a drive down River Road here, well, actually here at WIU, I mean, we actually have a campus where our classrooms look out on the Mississippi River. That's a pretty good indication that we definitely, as a community, are looking toward the water. We certainly don't have our backs to it anymore.
Why is Western Illinois University involved in this?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. One of which is the fact that Western in Macomb actually sits at the geographic center of the 3 of the 4 port regions. While Western at Macomb's not actually in any one of the 3, it's actually geographically centered. So it makes sense as a sort of a place for folks to go where we don't have we don't have a dog in the fight and what have you. Mm-hmm. We can help folks out by providing research support and services in areas like environmental stewardship, supply chain management, logistics, things like that, and also community and economic development, without actually being involved in any of the individual ports from an operational or a jurisdictional point of view. The fact that WIU here in the Quad Cities happens to be in one of the 4 now port areas just adds a little bit of a little bit of extra flavor to the operation because we do have this strong connection to the river.
What is this designation going to do?
Well, I'm going to go back and just comment on that. We loved the idea of Western Illinois University and Macomb really being part of this effort because they are kind of in neutral territory between 3 friendly ports. And geographically, they're just right in the center. And that's very important to us for a lot of different reasons. Their service area really touches all 3 of the Corn Belt ports, that the original 3. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So it's a linkage.
It's a linkage,
which
right?
is really important. And as we know, is that Western is kind of the, like you said, you don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, they're kind of viewed as neutral and independent, trusted partners.
So what does this designation actually do as far as commerce is concerned? I mean, getting a federal recognition of a port means what?
Well, in 2020, we were ranked as the 56th largest port in the United States. That's a ranking that includes coastal ports. That is nationally significant. Our goal is to get it up above 50 to be a top 50 port, but just having that designation and that recognition just helps in really effectively communicating the importance of the region to the nation, the importance to the region in regards to the national and global supply chain. So that's extremely important just to be able to highlight that too.
The biggest deal, of course, is the transport of grain. I mean, I understand fertilizer, a lot of farm equipment or farm services come up and down the Mississippi River. And one of the biggest problems actually is the lock and dam system that is in the upper Mississippi. It's old. It was built in the 1930s. A lot of this is a Depression era construction. And so many times the barges have to split in half just to get through the locks. Is that one of your top priorities? Because infrastructure along the Mississippi River, there's a lot of need there.
Right. Infrastructure is a priority of ours, and both the man-made transportation infrastructure, and that's multimodal infrastructure to include rail and road upgrades, and also the natural infrastructure component. But to go back to the locks, they were built in the 1930s, the same time the I-74 bridge was built, and we just demolished that and replaced it. It's just time to replace our locks, with new modern 1,200-foot locks. The blocks that we have were built during the steamboat era, and we don't have steamboats anymore. So it's just time to bring them kind of up to speed or up to the modern standard.
You're talking multi-billion dollars, though.
That's correct.
And not an overnight solution either.
Not an overnight solution. They'll cost about the same amount as the I-74 bridge.
Do you have a feeling that this designation, that it's somehow going to improve the possibility of getting extra infrastructure dollars in order to do this work?
Absolutely, yes. All of our elected officials have been really supporting this effort for 15 years to try and get funding here, but they could never say that our locks and dams connected our ports in the heart of the globe, in the heart of the Corn Belt with global markets. They can say that now because we have ports. So a lot of it was just we were having trouble articulating the need, the requirement, the impact to the national and global supply chain, really. And so this port designation helps us do that.
So how does the designation help on the environmental side? How does it help with the protection of the river? Because we're talking about using the river as the workhorse that it is.
Sure.
But you want to also protect it for a myriad reasons.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the big reasons that we're involved with folks at the Corn Belt ports. Like Bob mentioned, this isn't just about necessarily getting some type of like a paperwork recognition that we have these ports and whatnot. There is a bigger, bigger end game here, which would be infrastructure investments and expansion and things like that. So, by being involved in this on the front end, we can make sure that we're helping folks out to make good decisions that are not only right for the economy and commerce, but also make sure that they're doing things that are right for the environment as we look at future development.
We all love this river. I mean, it's a part of all of us. I mean, it literally runs through us in so many different ways. We're seeing some of the worst droughts. We're seeing some of the lowest river levels ever. I mean, almost records twice in just the last 3 years.
Yep.
Are you worried about the health of the Mississippi River right now?
I think you always have to be concerned for a number of reasons. Your specific question with regard to climate change, I think that's sort of where you were going. If you look back, we've had, yes, record drought, protracted drought, but we've also had, like in the springtime, you'll see we have some flooding. It's becoming much more common to have flooding in the spring, followed by, again, this pickup back to the drought period through summer and early fall. So am I worried about it? I think by doing the right thing, as opposed to sitting around and talking about it, starting to do things like talk about infrastructure improvements that we can increase the resilience of our infrastructure systems and whatnot, that's a good proactive step toward making sure that we don't get caught flat-footed in the future with respect to whether it's climate change, flooding, drought, you name it.
Well, and we're talking about, the river as commerce. And Bob, I know you're concerned about the upper Mississippi. Lower Mississippi, you have to be equally concerned because it has to go through that area. Yeah. You're seeing the drought really impact there. You've got at least, I believe, 9-foot navigable area in the middle of the river in the upper Mississippi that you don't have in the southern Mississippi. So how big of a concern is that?
Well, it's a concern, but what's really nice is that in the upper portion of the Mississippi River, we don't have the low water conditions just because we maintain a 9-foot water level. So in many ways, our locks and dams are a climate resiliency feature. It was never thought of that way in the 1930s, but that's the way it really is. But yes, our largest trading partner is the state of Louisiana. So that linkage between here and Louisiana and everything in between is extremely important to us. We definitely want to keep the navigation channel open, all year long for commerce. So we support any efforts to do that.
Now that you have the ports created, what is your short-term goal? What are you looking to accomplish immediately?
Yeah. So there's a few things. We still have 2 years of infrastructure bill money available. So we're trying to attract $500 million of increased investment in the region.
You're talking because of the federal infrastructure bill, the bipartisan bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're trying to attract another $500 million over the next 2 years. We've got some very specific things we're going after. We want to get the LaGrange lock fully funded for construction. We just received funding to complete the engineering and design effort. So within 2 years, we want to get that started. So we've got a lot of projects like that we want to focus on. There's some things that have been left out or overlooked for a lot of different reasons, but right now we've got about $192 million worth of ecosystem restoration project under the Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program that's been approved for this region between Illinois and Iowa. We have zero on the Illinois waterway. So we want to start helping balance things out so that we are really helping herd the investment in the places where the greatest need exists.
Because we always think of the Mississippi River, we don't necessarily think of the Illinois River. How important is that?
It's
go ahead.
One system. I mean, you can't separate the Illinois waterway and the Upper Mississippi River. At least we don't, from the Corn Belt Ports view of things. So it is one part of one system. The Corn Belt Ports are really all of the ports inside the lock and dam system in the Corn Belt. And they're just as much a part of it as the Illinois waterway is just as much a part of it as the Upper Mississippi River.
Well, and Roger, what do you see as the short-term goal?
Actually, I think picking up on something that Bob mentioned with respect to the Illinois River, and trying to help sort of expand programs and opportunities there. Something about our ports that make them quite different from what you typically expect on the coast is that you mentioned a river runs through it, not to it. That's actually like the little ports on the coast would be a place where you run to it. Here, you're right, we do. Things do run through it. So coming up with the best ways to grow, to operate, develop, and expand those types of operations where you have a port distributed along a line as opposed to a point, that's something that we're particularly interested in with respect to making sure that we not only do all of the commercial development types of things, but also make sure that we have a plan for sustainability and stewardship as well, which is something that I think we're hopefully going to be that's going to be our first step toward growing.
That is a great point. We have long linear ports for a reason. I mean, there are some areas that we want to protect the aquatic habitat in, some areas that are managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service. Other areas are logical areas because the transportation network, the road network to put a terminal, for example, or a grain terminal. So we have a distributed kind of just to manage things in a more sustainable way. We do have distributed terminals and we have linear ports. There are large fleeting areas. There are other linear features to this that are very important, and they just need to be carefully thought through on a regional level to make sure that we do have a sustainable solution for shipping our products to global markets.
And I do want to underline that because it really is two things that have to go hand in hand. It's the commerce of the river, but also the protection of the river. I mean, is that possible?
It is. We're going to make it. That's our job, is to make it, is to actually realize that vision. And we've got a good start, but there's a lot of improvements that can be made.
And there's a lot of shareholders that are involved.
A lot of shareholders.
So how do you wrestle that all together to come up with at least a common theme?
Yeah. Well, I think everyone realizes that they respect, I guess I should say, and this is the Midwest. Everybody works together. They respect each other's viewpoint and position. Very little conflict. I mean, they'll get in a room and they'll come up with a solution that's better for everyone. It may not be a perfect solution, but we were just very fortunate with the culture that we have in the Midwest that people do want to sit around the table and just make things better.
Well, I talked about the short-term goals. I mean, you're looking long-term. I mean, the river's got to last generations. I mean, and let's be honest, I think we've learned we can't tame the river. The river does what it wants to do.
We give it our best shot. We've given it our best shot. Yeah, and that's a challenge, whether it was we talk about port development or just living in proximity to the river. We've got a lot of things that are changing. You'd mentioned earlier climate change or things like that with increased frequency of flooding and increased duration of drought periods and things like that. So I think that's really why, that's really sort of where we come in terms of bringing the science-based decision-making to the process so that we can hopefully work with the folks at the Corn Belt ports to give them the best information possible to make decisions about the way the port system's managed.
And you believe that your voice is going to be equal to commerce's voice? You'll be heard.
I'll be heard, absolutely. I've never had a problem. Nobody's ever said I have a problem being heard. Yeah, but again, and I think that gets back to the idea that like nationally, federally, and whatnot, the river is recognized because of its importance to commerce, but also because of its unique environmental and ecosystem services that it provides. So there is already that. We don't have to introduce that into the discussion. That's something that folks are already pretty well aware of. So we're going to give it our best shot, and yeah, that's why we're here.
I know you want to address that.
Well, I just want to say on the commerce side of things, there are other things other than navigation too that really contribute to the economy. Over 400,000 jobs in the upper Mississippi River Basin are associated with recreation and tourism. And that brings a lot of money into the region. So that's all important to us. So we're just trying to help balance the competing commercial needs and commercial interests that are out there, just so that we want to support economic development. There's no question about it, but we want to do it in a smart way and not just focus on one industry group or another.
We've talked about the Quad Cities area being one of 4 ports, another one to the north, others to the south. Is that regionalism important? I mean, because not only will you be talking, hopefully, in one voice in this area, you would also be coordinating for the other 3.
We will be, yes, but here's a great example. I mean, on In Moline, the Riverstone is there. They're involved with a lot of activities on the river from a standpoint of stone related to stone.
Absolutely.
Actually. And then the local commercial cruise line, if you will, is right here in Moline. On Rock Island, they handle specialty products at the terminal there. Davenport is the major cruise boat terminal. And then Bettendorf, right across the river, they've got a huge, shiny Cargill facility there that handles grain. So everything kind of works together. From a regional standpoint, we've kind of settled into what communities and what parts of the counties are, their little niche has been, they've already been identified, and we just want to capture that in a regional approach and kind of manage things or help shape things in a way that helps grow the economy, makes development, ensure we have smart development as we move forward along the river system. And it's just a lot, we're just a lot stronger if we all kind of work together. But we're not experiencing any really competition, a lot of cooperation out there right now. So we're very fortunate.
Well, and you're bringing up that all the different interests that there are, all the different types of commerce that people not necessarily notice. They drive by it all the time, or if they're in a boat, they float by it all the time. So what is the long-term goal that you really have? Is it just to build on what we already have, or are you trying to bring some new concepts into the river in our area?
Well, the port statistical area concept is a new, more modern way of looking at things on the river. It doesn't force us into concentrating terminals into a point port as Roger kind of described. And really the smart thing to do, especially on long, narrow, skinny river systems, is to kind of spread out the port development, the terminals, and do it in a way that really is nested into a larger regional multimodal transportation plan.
Are you pretty happy with the health of the river right now? I mean, the stuff that we have learned as far as using it for commerce, but also to save it for the environment?
Yeah, we've got some water quality issues that we need to work, and we're concerned. A lot of ports are not concerned about that, but we are. But a lot of that has to be handled in the tributaries. A lot of our flooding really is a result of not being able to retain enough water during rains up in the watershed. 90% of the flood damages are really off the Mississippi River. But we really do want to support wise management and development of our tributaries, whether it's creating more wetlands, creating retention ponds, if you will, to slow the water down. But that will reduce flood risk here on the Mississippi River. So yeah, we're interested in all of that. We're very fortunate. We don't have I don't know of any federal threatened endangered species right now on the or endangered species rather, on the upper Mississippi. We've done a nice job of being able to kind of manage the long, narrow, the habitat that we have along the Mississippi River to maintain the species here. 90% of the wetlands in Iowa have been drained to support agriculture. So that just even makes this corridor here more important, just to kind of maintain regional habitat for all the aquatic species that really depend on wetlands and water.
Well, that includes the stuff that we don't see. I mean, you think of the mussels in the river and the care that went into keeping track of the mussels when the new I-74 bridge was built. I asked Bob in regards to the long-range plans. What would you say the long-range plan is?
Actually, a large part of our long-range plans fit in with actually something that Bob mentioned, and that has to do with moving some of our focus out of the main channel and getting into the headwater streams, tributaries, and ultimately to headwater streams, to try to come up with, to try to help folks to better manage their land, which is adjacent to streams, to do things to keep the water in the headwaters, to keep the nutrients in the headwaters, and also to help keep some of the soil and the solids that end up making their way ultimately down to the Gulf of Mexico, where they belong. Midwest. One of the reasons that it's such a huge, so successful in terms of agricultural production is the quality of the soil and whatnot. But if we don't take care to protect the soil in those headwater streams and whatnot, that's certainly something that would affect future sustainability. So this is a great opportunity for me to not just be in the main channel, but to get back to doing some additional sciencey and engineering types of things that I think hopefully will have a positive impact.
Our thanks to Colonel Robert Sinkler with Corn Belt Ports and Western Illinois University professor Richard Villadero. We like to take time to showcase musical talent in the cities, and that brings us to our next artist. David G. Smith has a new album out that's called Witness Trees. He describes his music as a blend of folk, Americana, country, and blues. And for us, he performed one of his latest originals, David G. Smith.
A blue jay was a friend of mine. He used to sing to me all the time. There was his reputation, but then again, he used to sing to me and I'd sing to him. Well, I'm down here by the river, I sit beneath the tree. I'm gonna listen to the river gonna talk to me. Summer wind was a friend of mine. From the ocean to the mountain pine, used to sound soothing rain. Now it's flooding hurricane. Well, I'm down here by the river, sitting beneath the tree. I'm gonna listen to the river gonna talk to me. Mother Earth was a friendly face, with a fertile beauty and a patient wings. Throw a seed from a burlap sack, you know I gave to her and she gave back. Well, I'm down here by the river.
I wrote that song, goodness, a long time ago. I don't want to date myself. Many years ago. It's about our environment, kind of some of the things that maybe it was just a prescient moment I had when I wrote it, you know, again, 20, 30 years ago, about what's going on these days. And so it's, you know, to keep it short, it's about environment, and it's about, I guess, climate change and some of those things.
Well, I'm down here by the river, sitting beneath the tree. I'm gonna listen to the river gonna talk to me. Well, I'm down here by the river, sitting beneath the tree. I was gonna listen to the river, but the river won't talk.
On the air, on the radio, on the web, on your mobile device, and streaming on your computer. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Whelan Presley and Van Ho Funeral Homes have been serving Quad City families and veterans for over 100 years. Whelan Presley is located in Rock Island, Milan, Reynolds, and Van Ho in East Moline, proudly supporting WQPT. Alternatives is a proud supporter of WQPT and has been serving our community for 40 years. Alternatives provides professional guidance to maintain independence and quality of life for older adults and adults with disabilities.